Hello and welcome to the Claret podcast. My name's Dan Rowlands and I'm joined here this afternoon with John Townley, who's back from Burnley to talk about all things Aston Villa. We'll touch on the transfer window a little bit and also look back at the Burnley game and ahead to Liverpool. John, how are you this afternoon?
Yeah, doing well, thank you. Good win on the road, 3 out of 3. Doing well, thanks, Dan. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. Busy start to the week as per. 2 games upcoming. Hibernian, of course, on Thursday at Villa Park, and then Anfield away before the international break. Like I said, we're going to talk about Burnley, a couple of individual performances, and then we'll go through some transfer bits and pieces as well in our new Monday show roundup. Big win, wasn't it? Actually, that Burnley game, I felt in the preview that we did, I feel like we were maybe bigging Burnley up a little bit and expecting it to be a tough game. And I still do think actually that Burnley can go on to have a decent season. I think the more games go on, the better they'll look. But kind of overestimated them a little bit. It was a bit easy, wasn't it? Really, that game as it went on. Maybe easy isn't quite the right word, but I expected it to be tighter than it was. I kind of been relatively happy with a point before kickoff, just from like the hype of Burnley that they're going to be like this good footballing side, especially at home. But as it played out, that wasn't really the case, and Villa were comfortably the better side, weren't they?
I think that's credit to Villa because I think it was a test of our character in the second half. Yes, the first half was a little bit easy. I actually thought Burnley were very soft. Yes, they can play some good stuff, but I think it will probably take them a few weeks, maybe possibly months to really get going, and then we can properly judge them. Because I think at the start they've had a lot of new players come in the building, and they've got one way of playing, which could be an issue for them later on in the season. We'll see. But they obviously start the second half. I'd say this. Yes, they start the second half well, but also it was a mistake from Pau Torres ultimately that allowed them to get back in the game, and those are the margins at this level. But then you flip that and then you say because Burnley didn't go on and score the second, it's then Villa go down the other end, and through some quality from Diaby, they take the game away from Burnley. So you almost saw in two different ways what can happen in the Premier League when you either don't take your chances or you step off and allow the other team to come back in it. So yeah, a big win for Villa actually, I thought, because we've had the Newcastle game, we have Everton. Hibs is irrelevant really, and Burnley away is another different test because Villa had, I think it was, would last won in April against Leicester away, which is, obviously we've had months off because of pre-season and obviously the season finished, but that was obviously a long time ago, and that was I think five away games that Villa hadn't won. So yeah, to get back to winning away from home, I think that was important, and we did it, I say, in style. The first half was really good. We lacked a bit of control in the second half, but again, you're going to get these moments in this season, and we came out of it well with 3 points.
Before we get into the game specifically, because you're the one who's now travelling around the country following Villa for us, I'd like to get a little bit from you about what the experience was like, what was Turf Moor was like, what was it like to go up there, like just a bit of colour around the day for you. How was it?
Tiring. I came back at about midnight. I left the house at 8 a.m. Got back at midnight. And for some reason, on the rotor today, I was working at 7 a.m, so I haven't had much sleep. But no, it sounds like I'm complaining. I clearly have complained there, but it's class just to follow Villa away from home. Obviously, see all the fans going up there. Met a few fans around Turf Moor again and going up to the game, for the Hibs and Newcastle games too. But very busy travelling around different places. But yeah, wouldn't change it for the world. Really enjoying it. And Turf Moor, I mean, I'm not in a rush to go back. In all honesty, that's I don't want to be too rude, but I'm sure there's better stadiums to go to.
After the game, Unai Emery said that after the match we played against Everton, a very good match as well, very good points after losing to Newcastle away. How impressed have you been with the kind of mentality, I guess, of the players since that Newcastle defeat? They won't have taken that lightly, will they? It won't have been nice to go up to Newcastle on the opening day and lose in that manner. We've obviously spoken about the Tyrone Mings thing at length as well. To kind of bounce back from that, and I know they're lesser sides. We've played in Everton, who are terrible. Hibs, the standard between the Premier League and the SPL, radically different. Hibs, bottom of the league, sacked Lee Johnson since that first game. And then Burnley, even yesterday, yes, people are saying and expecting them to be a good side. But yesterday, they weren't a good side. Yes, I get that we've played 3 sides that we were expected to beat. But for me, that's, again, testament to Villa, because years gone by, we struggle against those sides that we're expected to beat. I now expect us to put those sides to the sword, and anyone who you would imagine is going to be down in the bottom 8, bottom 10 even of the Premier League, I would think, well, Villa can beat these.
Yeah, it reminds me of what Vincent Kompany was saying when you mentioned all those things, Dan, about Villa being that team now that Villa had hoped to have been a few years ago. And I think it's actually happened very quickly in a way. As a lot of that down to Unai Emery. We can't get around it. As soon as he's come into the club, he's completely transformed. I wouldn't say the trajectory, because I think Villa were getting there. Yes, we were bad in Steven Gerrard, and I won't continue to talk about it, but we've gone like 0 to 100 almost, not overnight, but in the space of a few months, and that's only going to continue now in terms of the progression of the football club and the players that Emery's working with. And Kompany said after the game about how well Villa have been coached under Emery and the quality that he has in his team. And he basically mentioned that Burnley need to learn quickly in terms of how they approach games and how they need to take chances, because teams like Villa are in the Premier League, and it's nice to be recognised as one of those teams who aren't, one of those mid-table clubs, I suppose you could say, with all due respect to a team like Crystal Palace, should we say. Villa, and we know this already, but it's nice to be mentioned within we finished 7th, to be fair, didn't we? So we are one of those clubs, but we know we have quality, and other clubs are recognising that. And to play Villa, it's almost like, if you can get something against them, it's a scalp. It's not necessarily a free hit for clubs like Burnley, because you are playing at home and you need to get points to stay in the league. But I don't think he was necessarily surprised of how good Villa were, if that makes sense. And for me, you're still going to these places and you're thinking, hopefully Villa can get a result and get a win. Whereas I think maybe in a couple of years, even less than that, you'll be, as you say, Dan, or even now, as you say, you are, you're almost expecting to go to these places and win comfortably without it really being too much of a sweat. And that's what clubs like Tottenham have done in the past few years. Clubs like, Everton 10 years ago, I suppose, when they were chasing Europe, and Leicester as well over the last few years. But Villa, as we've said before, they want to not only achieve what they achieved last season, they want to go again and continue to improve and get near the Champions League positions. And at the moment, it's only going one way. And the game against Burnley as well, I thought it was Villa showed two sides, because, as I say, there was that 15-minute spell in the second half where Burnley were on top and that goal was coming for sure. And I think maybe if Emery had just taken over, or if it was on Villa were playing a different manager, we would have probably gone under, and Burnley would have scored, and then the game would be completely level heading into the last 20-30 minutes of the game, with Burnley fans pushing them to score a winner. But instead it was one opportunity for Moussa Diaby, and that's what you get from top players. The whole Turf Moor, apart from the away end, was silent, and that's something that Villa fans will probably be familiar with, that feeling of going, like that Chelsea. I don't know if you remember that Chelsea game under Gerrard a couple of years ago. I think we lost 3-1, and when Lukaku came off the bench, I think Matt Targett scored the opening goal. It was a bit of a fluke, but there was just one game that popped into my head, and it was like, oh, Villa on top here, like, can we get something? And all of a sudden, 2 goals, 2 good moves from Chelsea, and the game's done. But that's Villa now, and that's a really good position to be in. And at the start of the season, you need things like not to lose 5-1 to Newcastle, but if we can learn from that, as I think we have, then that can only be positive.
Talk to me about Moussa Diaby a little bit, because obviously we did the post-match show after the games now. Me and Neil did it yesterday about, 45 minutes after full time. It can be a little bit of a blur, can't it? I don't know whether this comes across to the audience watching or not, but when you do those podcasts, there's so many thoughts racing through your head. You've seen little bits of footage. You might have only seen one replay back or things like that. I think I said something yesterday like, I don't think Moussa Diaby had his greatest game ever, but he's done okay, and I kind of flippantly moved on past it, almost like forgetting the fact that he got a goal and assist and took his goal very well. Like, that goal is a lovely kind of clinical striker goal, isn't it? And I saw some comments saying like maybe that's why some of the big clubs kind of passed up on Diaby, thinking that he's this kind of one-on-one winger, whereas playing that second striker role is I know we've recruited specifically for the system we play, but that's a bit of a masterstroke from Emery to sign him to play that position, because he looks very dangerous there. But yeah, like I said yesterday, I kind of just flippantly moved past it and just went, he didn't play his greatest game. But to me, that I say that in the sense of like, he played well, but I think he can go well levels above what we saw yesterday. Like, he could be a serious, lethal finisher. And like I said in our season preview, like, I'm backing him to be top scorer in the Premier League for us. I think he can hit this run of just being absolutely dangerous. Can you expand a little bit on how you saw Diaby's game? Because I think in your player ratings, he was one of the best yesterday.
I wouldn't say it's hard to say game changer, because Villa were leading at the time, but you can't underestimate what an important goal that was in the
it's
context.
Right what you say though, it flips the game, doesn't it? Because you kind of think Burnley getting back into it, but in Diaby's clinical finish from just outside the box, I think it was, like you said, it's game over. So game changing in that sense. But overall, his performance wasn't like this dynamite, electric 10 out of 10 performance, but just in those crucial moments, he delivers.
Yeah, and that's what you need, especially from those players in the forward positions. There's 10 of the players who can have an 8 out of 10, shall we say. But if Diaby's there to put the ball in the back of the net when you need it, there you go. That's job done. He's won the game for Villa in a weird way. Yeah, top recruitment from Villa. I mean, we knew that Diaby was a top player. He's been tracked by all the top clubs. Just speaking to people who were in the game, a lot of them say that, when he joined by Leverkusen, because there was I suppose there's a feeling that when he was at PSG, I mean, he was one of the standout youth players. Obviously, didn't get his opportunity under Emery, but when he did, after his first year, he left by Leverkusen only after a year and did well there. But he's been tracked by all the top clubs, and maybe that was why some teams didn't fancy him, because they thought, well, we have so much quality in those sort of central areas with strikers and whatnot, or number 10s, attacking midfielders, things like that we don't need Diaby to kind of cram that space there. So he would be playing out wide. And if he's playing out wide, then is he, can you utilise all of his strengths there from that position? Possibly not, as we've seen, because he links so well with Ollie Watkins. How many games have they played with each other now? I mean, including pre-season, only a handful still. And that Newcastle game was obviously going to be very difficult, and he still scored a really good goal. So, yeah, we know he's a top player, and Emery is really pleased with how quickly he's adapted. I asked him after the game about that adaptation period. He almost hasn't had one. He's hit the ground running, and then some, because he's not only scoring goals, but he's linking well. He's perfect for that role that Villa were looking at in the summer of that support act to Watkins. Obviously, Nico Williams, Chiesa were also being looked at, but Diaby, I don't know where he was ranked amongst Villa's list, if there was ever such a thing. Yeah, top signing, and for the money Villa paid, already you're looking and thinking it's hard to say bargain in football these days, but if he's scoring 15 plus goals, then there you go. That's a player that can do a lot of different jobs, and he's so quick. Villa are one of the best teams in transition in the Premier League now, and that's what Kompany said as well. He said their main threat, apart from all the other stuff about controlling the game and defending well in terms of a low block sometimes, and also playing a high line, catching players offside, but also Villa's counter is really good, and they've got so much speed. As soon as John McGinn receives the ball from a progressive pass from the centre back on the halfway line, he will turn a player. And then you've got Watkins going, Diaby going, left back pushing on. So much danger for the opposition, and that's I'm getting ahead of myself. But Liverpool on Sunday, Gomez and Matip, who should be the centre backs, the Villa forwards will be licking their lips there. I can easily see Villa scoring a couple of goals, and that's quite something, because obviously we're playing at Anfield. But yeah, Diaby is the top player, a top acquisition from Villa, and against Burnley, we saw exactly what we're going to be getting: a player that can change the game with one moment of quality.
I like that you mentioned that we could maybe score a couple of goals against Liverpool, because I said I quite fancy us in the show we did yesterday against Liverpool at the weekend, that I think they're vulnerable. And there's a few comments on social media, particularly opposition fans, of course, kind of going, oh, Villa fans getting ahead of themselves. They've played 3 crap teams and beat them comfortably. It's like, well, what do you want us to do then? Lose to Everton,
we should have scored.
And Burnley.
We could have scored 4 against Newcastle.
You beat what's in front of you, don't you? If you play crap teams, you beat them.
We could lose.
Years gone by, haven't.
Don't get me wrong. We could lose 3-2, 4-2 to Liverpool, whatever it may be. But just in terms of going the other way, whatever we do defensively, I'm not talking about that. But going forward, Villa are a real threat, serious threat. Diaby is one of the best. I mean, I don't want to class him as a right winger, but in terms of that position where he's playing, he's up there in the Premier League. He's one of the best in the league at doing that. Ollie Watkins is one of the best number 9s in the Premier League. He just is, mainly because there's not too many of them. But say mainly that it's a factor of what I've just said. We know he can score goals. Yes, he didn't score his goal against Burnley, and he probably should have. But those players are so important. Villa don't just score 12 goals and actually forget the Hibs game. Villa don't score 4, 5, 6, 7 goals. I had to count against Everton and Burnley just because. They don't score those goals if Watkins isn't playing a part. All those players need to play their part, and Villa going forward, they're a real threat. And not many defences will be able to deal with that.
Let's just talk about the system a little bit. There's a quote from Matty Cash after the game in his post-match interview on Villa TV, which is, if anyone's seen that, he must have said that he was delighted about 10 times. It's just quite funny. But the key line that I've picked out, he said, the manager spoke before the game and gave us a game plan. And it's crazy because whatever the manager says, he knows how the game is going to go before. He does it all the time. He's incredible. I just find that quite funny. I don't know why. Just that Emery's so meticulous that it's almost as if like he can see the future. Like he'll set up a side knowing that, well, this is how the game's going to go out and we'll play this way for a certain reason. Here we go. 3 at the back, Matty Cash further forward. I'm doing that for a certain reason. Can you just talk me through a little bit your thoughts on the system change?
Yeah, for sure. You had Luca Dean playing as a left winger, but it was so advanced, especially in the first half as well. It was almost like a 3-4-3, I suppose you'd say. And Dean was so... You can't really number it, but to be honest, I think Burnley... This isn't negative at all to Villa, and not underestimating how well they planned for the game, but I almost think Burnley played into Villa's hands, and I think they're going to do that to a lot of teams. They go man for man, which is already a bit of a recipe for disaster, unless you nail it. Like we saw Leeds do something similar when they got promoted, and they did well when it was Project Restart, but when it was the lockdown season, but after that, they obviously got battered most weeks. So I think Burnley will ship a lot of goals. The thing for Villa was obviously trying to progress the ball, and then we'll go on to it, but the second goal was almost perfect in terms of how Emery wants his team to move it and be lethal and clinical. Villa were progressing it quite well, but then they'd get into the final third or so, but the pass out wide or the pass to Dean to Cash or to Diaby in behind, it was lacking ever so slightly. It was a bit slow as soon as they progressed it. So, but it was a matter of time that as soon as the ball went through those lines, which was, again, a testament to the formation that was played and the system that was deployed, that they could play the ball through to Luiz and Kamara. But then on a few occasions, the ball that could have just been whipped around the corner or to Watkins to then go through the channels or wherever the space was, it wasn't quite quick enough. I think if Villa had a few more of those passes that we saw, like when Cash, the 1-2 in the second goal with Diaby, a 1-2 is completely carved Burnley open, and then it's a goal, and that's how easy it was at points. So for as much as Villa did play well, I do think Burnley were quite naive in how they played. But if Villa had a few more of those moments, I think it could have been 3-0, potentially 4-0 by half time, and there's the game done, sewn up. Before Burnley came back in it, 15 minutes at the start of the second half. Obviously, Diaby wasn't on hand to get the third goal. But yeah, every game will be different for Villa next season, and Emery needs options. And you mentioned Cash's versatility about playing as a winger. I think he's only done that maybe once, maybe twice. But for the Wolves game last season when we drew 1-1, Cash played as a winger, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he's done it since then. Maybe he has. I'm not sure. I don't think he has. But he likes every player to play across different roles. He always mentions Diaby as well, being able to play as a winger, as a 7, as a 10, different roles, and with other players too. So versatility is key for him. And as long as he has options to overcome different opponents, Villa should be on for a good season.
I want to try and introduce the YouTube comments into this Monday show a little bit going forward, and I've been very busy this morning, so I've got a couple in front of me, but going forward, get involved in the comment section because they will start to be used to form the chat for these Monday shows. One from John Villa 1960, and he's got 10 thumbs up on this, by the way, so people certainly agree with him. These games have been invaluable for getting Diego Carlos back up and running, which I think is a bit of an underrated point. He's played very well the last couple of games, played 90 minutes consecutively as well. Talked about the kind of change in system. Pau Torres, the moment that has been highlighted is the goal, kind of showing him that the wrong side is annoying, but things like that will be ironed out over time. On the ball, his passing is excellent. Konsa is probably somebody, again, goes under the radar a little bit. I don't know why. We just tend not to speak about him. It's been there like that for the last couple of years, but he's been very good this season as well since the loss of Mings. But Diego Carlos coming back and playing 90 minutes against Hibs, 90 minutes a few days later against Burnley, and again, play very well. Yes, the caveat is that we're not playing great opposition, but like John says, pretty perfect considering what's happened to Mings.
Yeah, a really good point by John. I totally agree. Carlos needed that, bedding in period, I suppose, after... Is that first start since...
If Mings hadn't got injured, Carlos wouldn't be back in yet, would he? And he certainly wouldn't be playing 90 minutes. So that's been thrust upon us because of the injury, and having the Hibs, Burnley and everything going to be pretty easy. That's been good for Carlos.
I think confidence is a big thing there. Like we saw, it's only pre-season, but like in the Walsall game, I thought Carlos was a bit a bit erratic at points. He'd be trying to do long passes, which didn't come off sometimes, but then he'd be getting too close to his striker, giving away fouls, and then space comes behind him and things like that. But we haven't seen any of that, and it's very easy to make. Don't know quite how to say this, but it's very easy to make mistakes, or very easy to be seen to be making mistakes when you're playing such a high line, when you're being asked to use the ball so much, when there's lots of space in behind you. And that's how Villa have been playing over the last 3 games. So, yes, the quality of opponent who Villa have been playing, again, these could be the 3 easiest games Villa play all season. We don't know, especially the Hibs and Everton games. But it doesn't stop a midfielder putting a ball over the top and a striker running onto it. It's quite simple, but Villa have dealt with that very well. He himself, Torres, Konsa, kept the line really well against Burnley. And quite a few times Konsa would cover round, and he's not the quickest, but he's capable of just shifting enough over the space of, 10 yards. But he's so strong, he just knocks players off balance, and they can't get on to run towards goal directly. So even if he doesn't win the ball, he's just shepherding him away. And then Villa have, that mitigates then the attack, which might be very dangerous, of course. I think that's probably one of the biggest positives to come out of the first month of the season, that Carlos, yes, we didn't want to see Mings get injured, but it's nice to see Carlos being able to show what we hadn't seen last season, obviously because of injury, but we weren't aware of what condition he was coming back, into the team. So, yeah, to see him perform well was excellent. And as I say, some of his long-range passing against Burnley was excellent as well. There's a few times he pinged the ball to Matty Cash, and to be fair, some really good first touches from Cash to actually bring the ball down. He's a quality player, and you just hope that these games, as John's referenced there, he can continue that against Liverpool, because now Villa are going to be tested against a top Liverpool team, up against the Palace team, who are going to be very tricky as well at home. So,
bit of a defensive headache now for Emery, really, with the options that we've got. Because at one stage it was like, well, Torres has to play, so he's in there. Konsa's very good, so he plays. Carlos, we'll see what kind of condition he comes back in, but if he's playing well, he probably has to play for his physicality. So Konsa will just push over to right back. Then Cash starts to suddenly play very well out of nowhere and scores a brace this weekend. Yes, further forward, but he's still an option. And Luca Dean's resurgence out of nowhere. It's like, well, you can't even do that thing of shifting Torres over to the left, really, because at the moment, Dean has to play.
I don't think we'll see Torres playing on that left side anyway. I think that was almost do it in pre-season in case he was getting left or something. To be honest, against Liverpool, I can't see Villa playing that back 3, because I think it works for certain opponents, and it probably won't for others. I think if Villa progress the ball well and they flick it around the corner, they're practically in on goal, and there's an opportunity there. They can't do that against Liverpool. And obviously, it's not a game that Villa are going to be controlling at Anfield with their attacking line as well. Arguably the best in the Premier League. I think it would be very, very brave to play three centre halves and ask Luke Dean to play high and wide as he has been doing. And yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe we'll see almost the same personnel in terms of Konsa playing right back, Torres, Carlos and Dean, but just as like a flat back 4 and then almost a 5. Matty Cash can come round and almost play as that wing back. So it might be the same, but just instead of like an offensive formation, it's now a defensive formation. So yeah, we'll see. Again, it's tools for different jobs to overcome different opponents. So those options are what Villa will need to go far in each competition and to play against lots of different teams, because there's such a variety of formations and systems that teams play and that Villa will come up against. No 2 teams will be the same that Villa play next season. So this season. So
that flexibility and ability to adapt is going to be very important for Villa, as we've said a few times this season. Just very quickly on that second goal, 19 passes in that build-up. I think 9 players touched the ball at various points. I think there was a little spin from Kamara drawing it at some point. I think McGinn maybe pushed somebody off the ball, unless I'm thinking of a different stage. But like you said, I think earlier, that's like peak Emery. Like that's the mould, isn't it? If you had to say, what does Unai Emery want to do going forward? Print that routine off and stick it on the whiteboard and say, this is what we want to do going forward. Little 1-2 round the corner, Cash finishes very well. But like I said, that goal is Unai Emery's Villa.
Yeah, and what I liked about it was that the actual move, like, is in from back to front in terms of the goal. It wasn't obviously 19 passes because Villa tried to work it and then they moved back. But it was so quick, as you say. They were waiting for an opening, and that's the key thing, because it started with Torres punching the ball into, I believe, Watkins. So that beats. That gets Villa through to the final third, and then it was the ball around the corner, and then Diaby with some crazy bit of skill. Firstly, to beat a player like that, you think, oh, Villa now need to make use of this, and then I think you just say Kamara did some sort of drag back again. You're thinking, oh, we need to go forward, but then actually it's like, oh no, it's not on, so we'll go back and we'll restart the move. Yeah. So you can do, apart from Zaniolo's nutmeg and the no-look pass, which we'll talk about, those are probably two of the best pieces of skill in the game. And for play, you're probably thinking, all right, okay, we need to do something from this because we've just taken like 3 players out of the game by doing that. But because the pass wasn't on and because the move didn't develop as we thought it might have, then you go back and you work it again, and it paid off because then by going back, it pulls Burnley out of shape again. Again, they're going man to man. So Emery would have said, just pick your moments because those openings will come. Yeah, it was a perfect move because Villa had a couple of chances to go forward, but they chose the right option in terms of actually going back and restarting it because they knew that Burnley were going to come out of their shape. And if there's no option to do it, don't force it. That's the key thing that Emery keeps, harping on about. So yeah, Villa want to control games, but also pick the right times to make those combinations that we saw between Cash and Diaby.
And it's going to happen less at away games anyway. But if that exact move played out at Villa Park a year ago, the moment where you think something's about to happen, but you go backward, forwards, get it forwards, what are you doing? But knowing that the players know what they're doing, and as fans now, we know to be patient and understand that Emery wants these repeatable moves, that just because we go backwards doesn't mean it's the end of the play, it's the end of the move. You just start again, something else will come. Like you said, you pick your moments to go forward, and ultimately that ended up being the right decision. A comment here from Desi Do on YouTube, a great username. Can someone please enlighten me? What are the full words to the Moussa Diaby chant? Now, I know that when we were planning the show, you sent me a voice note and started singing the chant, which I might play in the podcast. I'm not undecided yet if I'll let you off or not. I don't like the end. I'm going to be controversial. I like the chant. I like the chant. It's good, right? But there's also that chant or that song has been used for Diego Carlos. For some reason, we're not singing that. We're just going, Diego, Diego, Diego. I like the chant. It's good. But the ending, it just falls flat. We're going to Athens. It's like,
I'm with you. I think the Diego Carlos one is better. And obviously it's the same chant. The Carlos one is better. However, Diaby and Moussa has a punch, especially the Moussa bit. And I like the Athens bit at the end because it's a bit, I don't know, it's like on a journey. Obviously, when we win the Conference League in Athens, then we can adapt it again. And when we're in Europa League, where in fact, let's have a look at where the Europa League final is next season. Oh, it's in Bilbao. Oh. So we're all going to Bilbao.
That's better. That's good. Villa saying, Moussa, we're all going to Bilbao. Like that sounds like that. You know what I mean? Sound is upwards.
Because we're going to be finishing 4th this season, we'll have to check with the Champions League.
Yeah, see where the Champions League final is for the year after. Of course, that makes more sense.
Munich.
Yeah, we're going to Munich.
It's nice to have new things. We've obviously got the Zaniolo chant as well, which is cool.
Yeah, I like the Zaniolo one. I like that one. Like I said, you sent me a clip from Turf Moor of the fans singing it, so I will have inserted that into the podcast, and I'll put the words up for the people who are saying, can you clarify the lyrics? I just don't want to sing it and come across like a fat idiot on the podcast. I do enough of that as it is. As soon as you just mentioned Zaniolo then via his chant, what did you make of his cameo? We mentioned earlier on that the no-look pass is just so unnecessary, but it's just great, isn't it? Things like that. Comes on, nutmeg, no look past the Cash, which to be fair, Cash, decent chance to be honest for the hat trick. I said in the show we did yesterday that I imagine you won't have had time to listen to it yet, but there's just something about him that I think fans are going to like. Shirt tucked in, pink boots, comes on with a bit of flair. Yes, he should have passed to Watkins, but I will let him off because we're already winning. And if that happens to me on my debut, I'm seeing myself with the headlines and the glory. I'm going for goal as well, so I'll let him off for that. Going forward, though, if that's 0-0, Emery will be fuming that Zaniolo doesn't try to play Watkins in. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, there's just something about him. And obviously, he won't be able to play if we're correct on Thursday for Hibs because of the Conference League rules, which is a shame because it would have been nice to see him get 90 minutes and get a bit more confidence. Possibly giving Emery a bit of food for thought for Liverpool, possibly?
No, not to start. Sorry to put your question, but he's not going to start against Liverpool because he's not. But yeah, really exciting cameo. Pink boots. Yeah, he's got swagger about him, hasn't he? He's got tattoos all over his arm and the tucked in shirt.
His legs everywhere.
Yeah, he's a unit. So yeah, exciting. There was moments, obviously, probably should have passed to Watkins. However, this is going to sound stupid because if you watch it back, it's very easy just to think, oh, why wasn't he passing it? But when they're running on goal on their debut, when Villa are 3-1 up, if it's 0-0, he passes that without thought. But is it on goal? He wants to score. I think we all back him to score as well. It wasn't a particularly difficult chance, but because he's then thought, oh, do I pass it? And he's in two minds. The gap closes. The keeper comes out. His shot's obviously blocked. Then so he's got Watkins in his view there in his periphery, and because the defenders, I think he's just stopped running with Watkins at that point. So then he's about to shoot pretty much, and he's thought, oh, Watkins is there. Do I by that it's split second of hesitation, and the chance is gone. But that's just because he's come on about 60 seconds before. So again, it's professional football. I'm not trying to make excuses because it's when you look at the video, it's pretty simple. But at the same time, I don't know how to say this. If you're playing five-side and your mate's open on the left and just that hesitation, it's harder. I don't know how to explain it. Yes, he should have passed, but there's reasons why he didn't. And yeah, he should have scored, but he would have. If he was on the pitch for 60 minutes before that, he would have gone in on a goal, put it in the bottom corner, and we wouldn't talk about it. It was an exciting cameo, though. He was picking up really good positions. I liked how he dropped deep to collect the ball. Yeah. He brought Villa forward. So while there was chances where he probably could have got a couple of assists or goals, who knows? But that he can do. Sorry, if he can do that on his debut, and yes, it didn't all come off. He settled well in the dressing room as well. The players seemed to be very friendly with him. And I saw what I liked about the Watkins one as well. Yes, he should have passed it, but Watkins didn't shout at him or berate him after. He went straight over to him and picked him up off the floor and patted him on the back and that sort of thing, which is good to see because Watkins would have been desperate to get off the mark this season in the Premier League.
Talk to me about Hibs a little bit then, just quickly, because the tie's done. The game is won. I'm absolutely not having anyone in the comments suggesting I'm jinxing it for the fact that Villa could not progress to the group stages. Like, come on. The draw for the group stages is Friday. Now, I'm not quite sure how we're handling the post-match show for Thursday, just because of how the game is expected to go, that Villa will rotate as much as they can, and then we've already got a 5-0 lead. Unless something bizarre happens, I'm not sure there's enough to make me jump on and do a podcast at 10:30 on Thursday night, when we'll be doing a show Friday anyway, as an either Liverpool preview or a discussion about the group stage draw. So I'd expect our next video to be Friday. On the game quickly, are you expecting just this routine Villa will rotate and probably still win anyway performance?
Yeah.
There's
not much to say about it. It's the job's done. We could lose the game 3-0 and I actually wouldn't care. It's not it's an absolutely irrelevant game, seriously.
I said that in the post-match show with Matt and Dan, and I had a few comments saying, like, look, Villa still don't want to lose for momentum and things like that. Emery will still want to win, but what I mean, like, the fans that are going and travelling, some of them a long way to go and watch Villa, they're not going to want to see us lose, of course. But from a game state perspective,
and I don't
we
think
can lose 4-0 and not go and still go through. But we're not going to, are we? I can't stress it enough.
Yeah, I don't mean that we are going to lose. I expect us to win 2 or 3-0, and it's a pointless game. It's a friendly. Let's just not give it airtime. There's no. Yes, it's the first European game that Villa have played in a long time, and the first home game in Europe. That's treated as like Villa are back in Europe and Villa Park's here. I think it'll be we're back in Europe, but there's no any. It's not going to be any energy, is there? Because what we going to get up for if we win 5-6-0? Not fussed.
I genuinely feel like, given the conversation we've literally just had as well about I'd skip it if we could. I'd actually feel like we'd be doing a disservice to the podcast by doing a show for the sake of it, just to get a few extra views and stuff. Like I said, unless something crazy happens that we do lose, or it's a 6-6 game or something silly, I feel like I have a routine win and Kellerman scores or whatever. It's like, okay, I'm not going to do a half an hour podcast just for the sake of trying to garner a few extra views, when we'll be talking about it on Friday anyway with the draw and the Liverpool preview. So I would expect there not to be a post-match show on Thursday is what I'm trying to say. Liverpool, though, again, we said it a little bit earlier about I do feel like we can give them a game, and I already know the comments for this and the social clips and whatnot will be deluded, arrogant Villa fans and whatnot. I'm not saying that we'll go to Anfield and win. And I've said this before, and I will.
But you think we'll finish fourth?
I feel like we can win, and there's a difference between the words "can" and "will." No. It's the belief that Emery instills in the players and therefore the fans that I feel like anything is possible. That's the vibe I get from Villa now. I'm not saying, and to be fair, when we do the preview, I've predicted Villa to win every week so far, so I probably will just for the sake of it. But I'm not saying, we'll go to Liverpool and win 2-1 and it'll be a great game and Diaby scores and whatnot. I'm saying it's feasible that Villa go to Anfield, put on a bit of a show with a very specific game plan, which is what Emery does. Every opponent is different. They're possibly missing Van Dijk unless that's overturned between now and the weekend, which I don't think it will be. They can be got at with the players that Villa have and Liverpool's defence, and they're still in. As much as they've had a decent result, a very good result there against Newcastle, Liverpool are in a bit of a transition with the signings they've made this summer. There will be vulnerabilities throughout that side that Villa can get at under Emery with what will be pretty much a full week of preparation because of that Hibs game rotation. I mean, the last Hibs game didn't affect Burnley at all, did it? So this one upcoming won't affect the game at Anfield next Sunday. So I'm not saying we will win, but Emery's given me the belief that we can beat anybody.
Yeah, I think it's given me the belief that we can beat almost everybody. I know what you're saying, Dan. Liverpool have lost once at home in 2 seasons.
Don't spoil it for me, all right?
Quite remarkable, really. And that was against Leeds as well, which, I mean, you could say two things about that. Yeah, but also fluke. I back what you're saying, most of it, but I don't know if you're predicting us to win. I don't think you are. I think you're just saying that we can.
Yeah, I will probably go for a draw as my realistic prediction.
Okay, fair enough. What I would say is that Villa can score goals, that's for sure, but that's going to Liverpool. So I think it'll be an entertaining game for sure. Yeah, Liverpool's home form is so good. Like, it must be better than Man City's. They don't win every game and we could get a draw, but I think winning it would be, we obviously went close last season, didn't we? But it's the fine margins as we showed Burnley on Sunday.
Just talking predictions very quickly while we're on it. Got mine spot on for Burnley, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. 3-1. What did I say? 2-1, I think.
You said 2-1. And the funny thing is, I was going to say 2-1 as well. And you said, well, you can match it if you want. And I said, I'll be a differential. I'll say 3-1 to try and get ahead of you on the predictions league. So 1 point for you for correct outcome, 3 points for me for correct result. So into the lead, I'll go in our predictions table.
It's a long season.
That's the real win this week.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Let's just talk transfers quickly-ish to round off the show then. Cameron Archer has now completed his permanent move away from Villa to Sheffield United in an £18.5 million move, which is great for Villa in terms of financial fair play, with a buyback clause, which the details of seem to be a little bit murky. I don't think anyone really knows, does that buyback deal expire in 2 seasons' time? What the fee is? Will there be an enforced buyback if Sheffield United are relegated this season? I've seen some people suggest, because Villa wouldn't want Archer to be a Championship player. So if Sheffield United go down, Villa have to buy him back.
Just say a lot of the details on buybacks in general for whoever club, whatever transfer, are always quite secretive, as you'd expect, really. The
overarching point is that Villa are acting in a way where, as Emery keeps saying, the word is control for them. Aaron Ramsey obviously at Burnley on the bench last night in a permanent move with a buyback. Cameron Archer to Sheffield United to see how he does in the Premier League with a buyback. Philogene to Hull, I think will probably be completed. It might even be possibly done today. Again, it seems to be a £5 million fee with a buyback, which is a much lesser transfer than the other two for whatever reason. But Villa there are in a position now that if those three do go on to have decent spells at their clubs, they can bring them back and integrate them into the first team out of Villa, which to me, they'd have to be very, very good for Villa to even initiate that buyback, because Villa are, and again, we've spoken about this a few times now, Villa are progressing as a club quicker than those three will as individuals, I think. Unless Cameron Archer scores 30 goals in the Premier League this season, which, let's face it, he's not going to do. Villa, he's not even going to come back and be part of Villa's squad anyway. Let's say Villa qualify for the Europa League this year, either via winning the Conference League or their league position. If Cameron Archer scored 12 goals in the Premier League for Sheffield United this year and stayed up, he still isn't at the level to come in and do a job for Villa's first team anyway, because Villa will recruit again in the summer next year. So I don't think any of the 3 players on this buyback deal come back to Villa.
Yeah, it's just a comfort blanket for Villa. What you don't want to do is sell Archer for 18 million and he scores 12 goals this season. Sheffield United stay up, he scores another 12, and all of a sudden he's a £40, £50 million player. For that club, you are worth 40, 50 million quid because it's £100 million to stay in the league, isn't it? So more now. So as I said, it's a comfort blanket for Villa. If those players play well over the next 3 years, they can buy them back, sell them on for even more money. So yeah, there's different reasons why a buyback's in there, but it makes no sense to sell them for what would be potentially their lowest transfer fee of their career, if that makes sense. Like if Aaron Ramsey goes for 14 million now and he does well at Burnley, who in the Premier League, he won't be worth £40 million again. It'll be 20 plus. So it makes no sense. Why would you not have a buyback? And it's not costing Villa anything to have a buyback. They're not paying those clubs more money to insert that buyback clause, or if they are, it won't be a lot. So it's just it's good business. It's smart. It makes sense. If Villa don't buy any of them back, then there's a reason why. But for the players that leave in the future as well, over the next 2 years, youngsters again, they'll have buybacks too. And if one of them is bought back for a decent fee and is then sold for even more, something like that, or they play in the first team, that's why you do it. It doesn't have to be a player. It just makes sense to do so.
The rest of the transfer window then, you would expect, the deadline is this Friday, isn't it? There's got to be incomings, hasn't there, this week for Villa, surely, with the players they've let go now. There's still talk of Coutinho being linked to Qatar over the weekend. Obviously, there's still little bits with Luca Dean, although there's different outlets report that you might end up now staying at Villa. But again, if he were to go, we would need another left back. Obviously, Cameron Archer is now gone. Philogene and Will have gone, and he was involved in pre-season. Needs another attacking player though for me. If it's only going to be Watkins and Duran, you need another striker. Neil actually yesterday on the show we did post-match said that his kind of prediction all along has been that Villa will sign a striker from Spain's second tier or whatever for 7 or 8 million. And everyone will go, who the hell's that? But he'll contribute and be an important cog in Emery's system and score 7 or 8 goals and facilitate players around him, rather than Villa go out and spend 50 million on a big name everyone recognises. But I think there just needs to be bodies in that forward area brought in now that we've let players go.
Yeah, and Villa remain in the market. We spoke about it after Burnley, just basically saying that they need to be ready to move for players. I think what it is, obviously they've got their targets, but it's not as simple as just putting down a bid for a player, especially at this late stage of the window. It's about dominoes falling. So yeah, you'd expect potentially a couple to come in, but time's running out now, as you say, Dan. It's only Friday and it's we're halfway through Monday already.
If you were in charge and you had the option to say, right, I want to go and spend X amount or bring in Y,
don't ask me who
players.
All the time.
Not names. How many would you like, and what positions do you think you would go for?
Well, I think I would have added another goalkeeper for a start at the start of the window. I think defensively, I think we're probably set. Midfield, I think we're okay. I'm having to go through the team because I haven't thought about this question. Midfield, I think we're okay. Dendoncker should be back today. Yeah, I wouldn't expect him to leave either at this stage. And in the forward positions, you probably want another wide man. Obviously, Villa went after, or were going to go after, or considered going after Jack Harrison. Obviously, been linked to Acuna as well, but he's injured now, and Luca Dean appears to be staying, and he's happy to stay as well. And Emery's happy to have him in the squad. It's a bit of a strange situation, that one. And in the forward line, you've only got John Duran as Ollie Watkins is backup, so I think adding one more there, maybe a different profile of player. We've obviously added Zaniolo, who's a different profile to what an Emi Buendia was, or what Leon Bailey is, and other players like that. So I think maybe something different in the forward areas to maybe change the game. I don't know. It's again, at this stage, it's difficult to be too greedy, because what you don't want to do, and what Villa don't want to do for sure, is pick the wrong player and then you're stuck with them for a period of time. And Emery wants players in his squad who he knows can do a job for him in a very specific way. So that narrows down the group of players that Villa will be looking to sign for a start anyway. So
yes, it's an interesting time, isn't it? I expect, again, I remember doing a podcast pre-season and saying if I was a manager, I would want all my players in, during the pre-season, the first game or two, to get them in and incorporated into the whatever tour you go on and all that kind of thing. And I know that it isn't as easy as that. If I was now in this position, I'd want all my business done before the Hibs game. I don't want to be messing around on deadline day. I've got the Hibs game to think about. I'd be doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I want my targets done. I know things change and go to the wire, but if you're only after one or two more, get them done. focus on Hibs, get through that, go through the motions, and then it's all eyes on Liverpool, and you blood your signings in this week over the international break.
Yeah, obviously that would be ideal, but if there is a player there that Villa want, and I'm sure there is, as I say, hopefully a couple of players can join the squad. If there's a deal that can't be done until Friday, then you can't block it. But I know what you're saying. But as I say, at this late stage, there's a reason why those deals haven't been done yet. So it's either the opposition club or the parent club, I suppose. I don't know, either digging in the heels or trying to find replacements. And then how does that... It's always a knock-on effect, as I say. So like the Zaniolo deal took a few days to get done because from the Galatasaray side, it was obviously slowed up a little bit. So, you'd never know what's going to crop up when you're trying to go after certain players. And again, if Villa are bringing in players this late, there's a reason for that. And whoever comes in, it's not going to be out of desperation. It's because Emery wants him.
For the rest of this week, then, there'll be another podcast before the end of the week. If Villa do sign somebody, we'll obviously jump on it and react to that and talk through where they fit in and all those kind of things as we've done all summer. I'm not going to do a post-match show Thursday night. I'm going to make that decision now. Unless something crazy happens, it isn't worth it with us doing a show on Friday. Just to end, last week I said I was going to give away my notepad and pen.
Oh, that's a nice box as well. Give away the box.
It comes in a box, yeah.
That's fine.
I've picked a winner, basically. Say a winner. It's a piece of paper and a pen. Brad Shaw for life is the winner, who said, another great podcast, guys. Always looking forward to hearing your views and your inside updates from John. I have an autistic 9-year-old and a 3-year-old that would kill for that notepad to use at school or nursery. Keep up the good work, and I'm looking forward to the next episode. So, Brad, I assume that's your name. Let's see whether you've listened to the next episode or not. If you have, congratulations. Drop another comment down below. We'll work it out over an email or a text message or something, and I'll work out our best to get that notepad to you, whether I come and meet you outside Villa Park maybe at the next game if you're a match goer, or whether I post it out to you. We'll work out the details. So every Monday, the Can't Believe podcast will be here to talk about the latest topics surrounding Aston Villa. John, thank you very much for joining me as always. Thanks everyone watching, and we'll see you again later in the week.